everybody, welcome to the program. I hope I don't get the dates mixed up because we record sometimes a couple of days in advance. I'll be as careful as I can be. Hope you're well, hope you're happy, and I hope you might spend the next few minutes in the court of public opinion. We'll talk about the news of the day or some interesting things that have come up in a second, but Edwin Budding of England on this day signs an agreement for the manufacture of his invention. I've never heard of Edwin Budding before, but his invention was a lawnmower. 1830. Saturdays would never be the same again. How did people mow their grass before 1830? I'm sure there was lots of grass around the place. 2019. Australian federal election won by Scott Morrison's coalition government in a surprise result. Margot Fonteyn, 1919, British ballerina, considered the First Lady of British Ballet. Giselle, born in England, died in 1991, born 1919. John Paul II, he was the 264th Roman Catholic Pope, born in Poland, 1920. Napoleon Bonaparte proclaimed the Emperor of France by the French Senate, with a little persuasion from Napoleon himself. That was 1804. Miriam Margolyes. Not sure what the emphasis should be on. Miriam Margolyes, a British-Australian character actress. She was in Babe, Romeo and Juliet. She was in Harry Potter too. 1941, born in Oxford. She's something of a political activist as well. Nothing wrong with that. Frank Capra, Italian-born Academy Award-winning film director. It's a Wonderful Life. It Happened One Night. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Born Italy, died 1991, born 1897. Trans World Airlines, TWA, famous airline, begins commercial service on this day in 1934. Nicholas II, the last Tsar of Russia, born in St. Petersburg. Stalingrad, then back to St. Petersburg. Killed in 1918, born 1868. Omar Khayyam, 1048 was the year. Persian mathematician, astronomer, the basis of the Persian calendar, poet, philosopher. He was born in Persia, which is now Iran, died in 1131, born in 1048. And Elizabeth Montgomery, the American actress, Samantha, dies of cancer at just 62. The year was 1995. Yes, Bewitched and all of that. Anyway, what's on your mind? I'll run through a few of the things that have been on my mind. Big advertising campaign to bring health workers to Australia. You've probably seen some of the kerfuffle about that. We're trying to bribe them. Well, persuade them. $10,000 to $15,000 free housing, etc. Are we trying to build a bigger health bureaucracy? It's pretty bloody big now, you know. Probably only second to the educational bureaucracy. More health workers? Well, good, but at the pointy end, not in the bureaucracy. And can't we get the homegrown variety? I don't know why, but everyone working in aged care, for some reason, seems to me to be either Indian or from the Philippines. I don't know. Australians maybe just don't want to work in healthcare. Let's just keep people out of hospital in the first place, maybe. Lifestyle would be the biggest killer, wouldn't it? Lifestyle and carelessness. We know the enemies. So why don't we just work on or spend some more money on putting the fence at the top of the cliff instead of the ambulance at the bottom. We're very good at looking after the effect, but we don't always focus clearly enough on the cause. PricewaterhouseCoopers. Now, if you're a viewer of this program or a listener to my radio programs in the past, you know I'm not a great fan of consultants. Well, PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, are in more trouble than Speed Gordon. It's hard to imagine, with all their brain power, that they couldn't see what was coming. This scandal involving the government and its use of consultants from not just PricewaterhouseCoopers, but the big four consulting companies. The amount that the federal government and state governments, and I would think local governments too probably, spend on consultants would make your hair curl. It involves many billions and billions of dollars. And when you look at it, the government has been paying for as much as it costs to employ 1/3 of the public service to do the work that the public service is presumably well qualified and well paid to do in the first place. Now, we're talking here about $25 billion. $25 billion, ladies and gentlemen. Both Liberal and Labor use consultants. The question is why? Why? Is it that they don't trust the public service? Don't have faith in the public service? They're not competent? Well, if that's the case, sack them. But clearly, the compromise that has been revealed by the government using consultants cannot be ignored any longer. I'm dying to see how they get out of this one. You know, a brand like PricewaterhouseCoopers, I don't know what the brand would be worth, but no one would put that in jeopardy in this way, would he? I've got to ask you, how authentic? I mean, I could ask you this about art in general. I'm one of those, I like what I like, or I see a painting and I either like it or I don't like it, and that is what causes me to either want it or envy the people who've got it. But a lot of the stuff that is called art these days, it leaves me lost to explain. Authentic. Question has come up particularly about Aboriginal art. Now, there's going to be a review as to whether or not there are, heaven forbid, white people helping black people with their art. Going back to Leonardo da Vinci's time, and probably before any of the great masters, there were lots of apprentice artists who usually ended up finishing the masterpieces that carried the great man's name. The great master would start it, maybe do a bit on it, or draw the outline, but the other guys in the class would finish it. Now, there's nothing new about that. I don't think it detracts from the art, does it? Anyway, a lot of chest beating about that one. Did you see the story about Chiang Kai-shek and all those statues that they have gone around Taiwan picking up and delivering to some central park to then work out what the hell they're going to do with them? Now, he was a man. I like to think he was a great man. He fought Mao Zedong in a vicious mainland civil war in China in the 30s and 40s. It was freedom and democracy against Mao's communism. Anyway, Chiang Kai-shek lost, and he was driven or fled to the island of Formosa, which has become Taiwan, as you would know. They're trying to say that Chiang Kai-shek was a mass murderer. Well, it's more of this cancel culture stuff. I would have thought if you were fighting a civil war against Mao, everyone was a mass murderer. I mean, Mao killed millions. The truth is that Chiang Kai-shek created an Asian tiger economy out of nothing. Quite frankly, a little bit like Singapore. And if you're going to attack Chiang Kai-shek, you're going to have to attack Lee Kuan Yew. Both built free, prosperous, and mostly democratic countries. The communists, who are unable to confront or persuade the people of Taiwan that their way of life isn't as good as the communist way of life, they'll try it another way. This is what they're doing. They'll try the cancerous tactic of getting into the universities and the education system and society generally. And they'll try to eat the place out from the inside. They're very good at that. It's called subversion. Now, this is not exactly subversion, but Jim Chalmers, don't know if you saw it, speaking on The Insiders on the ABC, he was talking about the NDIS. And I think I've got his words right. We are going to wind back the fraud. We're going to wind back the fraud. And we're going to see to it that the people for whom the system was designed actually get the benefit. Well, my eyes opened. And I thought to myself, Jim, why don't you do the same for the Aboriginal people? Both the NDIS and Aboriginal affairs are big-ticket items. They both should be treated the same in this regard. Get the money to the people the system was designed to help. With both of them, stop the waste and the fraud. But unfortunately, the people on the Insiders didn't jump on that. I suppose you wouldn't expect them to, would you, on the ABC? I also want to mention this crazy business we have in Australia at the moment. It's not a big thing, not really. There are companies selling people on having their meals delivered to the door. I think there are 3 or 4 of them. And I don't know if they make any money or not out of the idea. They must, because they do a lot of advertising. But I don't get it. Are we too busy, too lazy? We can't cook? We don't have a kitchen? Don't like shopping? What is it? I've heard that there are some apartments in America, in places like New York, which are simply too small. They don't have a kitchen. They don't have a kitchen at all. The idea of buying our food, our dinner, our meals in boxes brought to the door seems to me to be quite strange, alien. The American idea is that people eat out all the time. Anyway, I'm amazed that there are enough customers out there for such an idea to make the business viable. But must be, I suppose. And speaking of weird products, well, I'm a man, I suppose I would think that this is weird. It's becoming very popular for young women to freeze their eggs. In the prime of their lives, they are somehow being convinced to pay lots of money to do this. Now, I don't know. Again, it's a bit like the kitchen in a sense. What's the problem? Not enough eligible straight men around? Career too important? Haven't got time to find a mate, a husband? Don't want a mate or a husband? But gee whiz, $15,000 to freeze about, I think it's 15 eggs, which may or may not produce anything more than perhaps 5 viable eggs that could lead to a baby. What's wrong with just living life, running your race, meeting people, throwing yourself out there? Maybe you'll meet Mr. Right, maybe you won't meet Mr. Right. And this is not like the science of IVF. Completely different, by the way. There is some sort of, maybe it's insurance. Maybe it's looked on as some sort of weird insurance. But I don't understand why anyone would interfere with the simple purpose or process that has worked for millions of years. It's so simple. We go through life, we meet people, some might like us, some might love us, and vice versa. The whole industry, this freezing your eggs business, is probably born out of a desire to create in women's minds paranoia. They're running out of time. The clock is ticking. I don't know where the romance comes in that. I just, in an old-fashioned way, wouldn't want to be conceived in that manner. Two campaigns, or probably what I really should say is two campaigners against the Voice, the Aboriginal Voice to Parliament, have come together to combine their efforts. And that's good. Warren Mundine and Jacinta Price. Good idea. Makes a lot of sense to consolidate their resources and their energy. I just hope the Australian people realise that there is this thing ahead of us and we'd better get it right. Which, in my mind, I don't know about you, Pete.
Definite no.
In my mind, it's a no. Did you see that story about the guy in Melbourne who bought a McLaren, I think it was a McLaren racing car, supposedly street legal, street car, then realised he couldn't register it and decided to, at great expense, lift his McLaren racing car 57 stories up to his apartment. Have they had to use a huge crane? I think it took him a couple of days to do it. Had to lift 57 stories up through a window, or more correctly through the side of the building, and I thought I was eccentric. Good God. He put it in his living room. Apart from that fact, be a conversation piece, I suppose, but it's not a very attractive car. But like everything else, you know, it's in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? But living with that in your living room, one could expect that there is a point at which money and common sense do come together. But perhaps not. But that's strange. Along the same sort of line, a man goes out and hires a Lamborghini. I didn't think you could go and hire a Lamborghini, but apparently you can. $500,000 Lamborghini, and blow me down if he doesn't crash it. And then he subsequently runs away. And he gave himself up to police, who didn't charge him with anything. Well, not at the time that we're recording this. It may change, I don't know, but I thought that was a bit weird. Now, I'll leave you with this one if I've got the time. Pete?
Yes.
One of the things that government does a lot of talking about, a lot of chest beating, it's this shocking situation, the emergency surrounding public housing, or as they call it, affordable housing, or social housing. When there is evidence that really the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. Now, what I'm about to say might shock you, and in a sense, I hope it does. According to the Sydney Morning Herald, a massive portfolio of public housing has been sold. Yep, sold. $3.6 billion in public housing stock and land was disposed of in New South Wales during the past 12 years. 7,628 properties across the state were sold somewhere between 2011 and 2023. 4,816 residential homes sold. You know, these are the establishments where we are experiencing a shortage or a complete absence 4,816 residential homes alone sold. Now, it makes no sense at all. It could be that these people just don't know. They haven't heard about the shortage or the emergency. That while they're complaining about not enough public housing, at the same time, they're out there merrily selling truckloads of it. Well, I suppose they're doing that to improve their bottom line. It's like some great round robin or Ponzi scheme. But you watch, no one will go to jail, not much will be said about it, won't really make the front page or, top news story. No one's going to lose his job. And of course, the rhetoric will continue with all the chest beating you could imagine. Thank you for viewing the Court of Public Opinion, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. I'm Jeremy Cordo. Pete and I will be back. Believe in yourself, and goodbye for now.